Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Hudak. Last week, you and I talked about why the Taysom Hill package worked so well. And there's some bad that we got to get to, but let's start with the good. And the good was the fact that the Saints were really able to run the ball effectively. They ran the ball for 228 yards for an average of nearly 7 yards a carry. Why were they able to run so effectively on Sunday?
I mean, they kind of had better blockers than I think they have had in previous games, as much as they kind of tried the wide receiver room and their pass catching prowess. Guys like Keith Kirkwood, J.P. Holtz, they actually offer quite a bit in run blocking. There were guys like Andres Pete who had really good games, and honestly, Adam Trotman as well. He, to me, really stood out as one of the top run blockers, which wasn't really something that was even in the vision for him initially. You know, he was kind of supposed to be that receiving tight end on that type of trajectory, but I'm curious as to when he went out of the game, because it did really just seem like, again, with all the success that they were having and the success that they were having in Seattle the week before on similar types of plays, they kind of just went away from that entirely and kind of declined to use Taysom Hill for any type of versatility at all.
You said Pete had a graded out well on Sunday. Did anything else jump off the page watching the film as far as the offensive line?
There were a couple plays again where James Hurst got beat. Cesar Ruiz, to me, he has kind of been better than I think people perceive him as, and I think that kind of happens with Andres Pete as well. I would say the run blocking all around was substantially higher. Just again, looking at how many yards they had on a lot of those plays, it's hard not to say a lot of that comes back down to blocking. So in terms of pass protection, it was a little more iffy, but I think the line is kind of starting to shore up, and the tight ends really are starting to kind of understand their assignments, and they're putting in guys like J.P. Holtz, who is he a little one-dimensional in terms of what he can offer in the passing game? Sure, but he gets out there, he gets in front of his block. You always see guys like Eric McCoy really far upfield, guys like Andres Pete doing that as well. So I think when this team really sticks to the run, you almost learn to kind of gel in that game, and that was kind of what seemed to be going on for the first three quarters at least.
Interesting note there about Holtz and Kirkwood. Maddie Hudak is with us, so let's go to the downright bad. What happened on Ja'Marr Chase's 60-yard touchdown?
A lot of missed tackles, which kind of seemed to be the tale of that day. You know, they were in cover one with Tyrann Mathieu as free safety over the top, and that game really quickly showed who's a little more sprightly at this point. And I would kind of have to say it's Marcus May at this point. He was a little more dynamic in the run game. He's really good at diagnosing run plays, finding that lane, getting into the backfield. And his tackling to me has improved from kind of the preseason to the early season, whereas the tackling by Tyrann Mathieu has just really gone down. And it's hard for me to evaluate Bradley Roby on his face because he's not playing that great, but at the same time, he wasn't even really have a place on the starting lineup heading into the season, and then suddenly he becomes cornerback 2 to make up for Paulson Adebo. He played some time in the slot because of C.J. Gardner-Johnson getting traded, which it's hard not to say that could have been used in this game as well, having Chris Harris Jr. in the slot for 96 or something % of the plays, but Roby in Lattimore's spot on Ja'Marr Chase and man coverage, I just don't think is ever really going to go that well. But the missed tackles really stuck out, and Mathieu just not really having that trigger speed to react to the plays in front of him and letting guys like Chase easily run around him.
Yeah. Well, Ja'Marr Chase is going to make a lot of defensive backs look silly, but it's a tough pill to swallow when you had two guys with an opportunity to get him on the ground or get him out of bounds. You couldn't do it. I've had a lot of people ask also, Maddie, about Marcus Davenport, who obviously the story of his career is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but when he's been healthy and been on the field, he's been really good. He's been healthy and been on the field. We just haven't seen the really good this year. When you evaluate Davenport, what do you see?
Yeah, I'm glad you actually told me to kind of look for that on film, because kind of keying in on him, it was a little nonsensical at times. We're used to double coverage on those defensive ends, and that's why they were able to kind of have, lesser guys on that interior at defensive tackle in the past, because Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport were regularly drawing double coverage. And at this point, Marcus Davenport, he was pretty much single covered the whole game. And I noticed he was wearing an elbow sleeve. I did go and look. He isn't on any injury reports, but it was almost like he didn't have the moves in his head, or he just decided kind of not to make them. There were several plays where, at least again, it kind of looked like if he had leaned into it a little more, he's probably easy to beat the guy in front of him. He's really good at bull rushing and throwing guys into the quarterback. We didn't see that at all until those last couple plays on those back-to-back sacks, I think, which were good to see at the end of the game, although they ended up being for naught. But I don't know what's kind of going on with him. I don't know if it is a health thing or what, but it just kind of seemed like he was a deer in headlights a little bit on some of those plays. And Cameron Jordan, for his age and his snap count over the years, he was beating guys. He was making one-arm tackles and chasing guys down when he was dropping into coverage. I think that he has really been impressive. And to have a younger counterpart in Davenport, who's on a contract year, and a guy that they drafted to replace Cameron Jordan and Peyton Turner that literally can't even get on the field, I don't really know how to solve that problem.
I know. It's we talked about it a bit earlier, that the defense, which has been such a cornerstone of this recent run, under Dennis Allen, it's just been massively disappointing right now when you're 28th in the NFL in points allowed. Maddie Hudak, she's on Twitter at Maddie Hudak _94. Hey, before you go, when you watched it back, was there anything else, player, situation, circumstance, that popped on film that you thought, that was interesting, maybe make a little note?
Yeah, again, Chris Harris actually was one of the better tacklers out there, which stuck out to me. I've read some articles where he's such an intelligent slot player, but he's at the end of his career. Justin Evans played 6 literal snaps. That didn't really make that much sense to me. They weren't really accounting for the running back out in the flat a lot of the time, but I feel like his name gets brought up every week. Pete Werner always stands out. Demario Davis stood out a lot in coverage as well. And there were good plays that were made on defense. It was just kind of plays that they were rushing 5, and Joe Burrow was running around free. So good spots, bad spots, but at this point in the season, it's not really anything to take away as a positive at this point.
Follow her on Twitter at Maddie Hudak _94. That's HUDAK _94. Saints Wire contributor with us here, sideline reporter for Tulane football, and an analyst and consultant there for Next Gen Prospect. Maddie, we always appreciate the visits. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.